hate the black folks, and the black folks hate the white folks. To hate all but the right folks is an old established rule, but during National Brotherhood Week, National Brotherhood Week.
To me, you're not Australian, you're only a paper citizen. I don't agree with you being here. My reasons are that non-whites coming here are destroying the Australian way of life.
Ah yes, the Aussie way of life. As pure as the driven snow, and apparently just as white. I know we like a drink, Australia, but don't we just have a temper? I imagine a sober responder might have thought twice about telling the slope who doesn't belong in the white man's country to cut with the racist bullshit.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Perhaps it's still unrealistic to expect tolerance on the internet, even from someone calling themselves outsider. Although, to be fair, they've got a chance to live up to that name now, because they've had their YouTube account suspended. So if you've ever asked how much of a wanker you have to be to get barred from making YouTube comments, your question has been answered. As for Natalie, the anger eventually gave way to yearning. If it wasn't enough for her to correct outside of 4202's English, if only to keep them back after class. She followed up by confessing her devotion to the relationship for the long haul.
I'm going to have as many slanty-eyed kids as possible. You won't know where to look. It is going to be a big, little communist nation of slanty-eyed kids. And you know what's going to happen? When they're older, your kid is going to fall in love with my kid. Who wouldn't?
I know someone who wouldn't. And even if they did, she'll always have the pleasure of forbidding him to marry into the family because he's too good a driver. That's an Asian stereotype she left off her list.
And then they're going to get married. And they're going to have little slanty-eyed kids. Your grandkids are going to look like me. Yeah. How do you like that, Marcus?
Essentially, Natalie's plan involves having lots of slanty-eyed kids and raising them to be friendly, humorous, confident, and tolerant. To which point I would ask her, what is your obsession with other people having to be exactly like you? Actually, the sort of plan to populate the Earth with foreigners is really not that new. It's been implemented already in other parts of the world, but it's been presented with a level of ignorance that would make even YouTube comments blush.
I was driving through Albuquerque, listening to a late-night radio phone-in. Woman calls up and she's going, "I got all these Vietnamese moving into my neighborhood. I don't like it. Too many of them. Vietnamese family living right next door to me. All these Vietnamese coming over here all the time. How would they feel? How would they feel if a whole bunch of Americans just decided to move into Vietnam?"
Go on.
How would they feel? Well, I imagine they'd probably spend the next 10 years fighting a bitter defensive war, many of them living underground in a series of interconnected tunnels until, through a combination of military genius, ideological conviction and village solidarity networks, they achieve a spectacular victory over the greatest military superpower the world has ever known. But then, the United States realises that territory it's lost militarily, it can still conquer economically, and so, using the IMF structural adjustment programs, they prize open the Vietnamese economy to transnational banks and corporations, thus triggering the financial crisis which leads to the collapse of social welfare provisions, thereby causing doctors, nurses and teachers to migrate to the United States and look for work in branches of Dunkin' Donuts, where they are paid wages so low they are forced to move in next door to ignorant white trash.
The bad news for the Vietnamese is that even if you can avoid the ignorant white trash in person, there's always the internet. I guess there are always going to be these sorts of ignorant, intolerant oiks out there. Some of them have even found my tiny piece of YouTube, where you'd think there wouldn't be anything too incendiary there just yet. But no, people find a way. Maybe I'll never know why being a respectable human being is so confrontational to these people. However, what I do know is that by and large, it's their problem for the most part, and I'll never be able to solve it for them.
Smile at one another hood week. Be nice to people who are inferior to you. It's only for a week, so have no fear. Be grateful that